Hi, everybody. Welcome to Give Yourself Credit. I am Amy Pierce Sanders, and I am so excited to be hosting Matt and Shelly Boyd this evening. And first off, hopefully, some of you folks are visiting us from Home Flats platforms because we would love to thank them for hosting this evening, sponsoring it. Um, Home Flats is a believer in investing in people. And that's why this was important because how does credit scores up, down, how do we fix them? How does it fit into E3 Coaching's model of career development? If you're in the middle of a pivot, you want to be financially prepared to not take any hits. Or if you're in the unfortunate situation of being unemployed at the moment, how do you manage so your credit score doesn't take a dip on things? And so we are so excited to have Matt and Shelly with us today for My Credit Repaired. So we're going to hand it over to Matt and Shelly real quick here.
Me?
Thanks.
Oh my gosh, we are so excited to be here today and talk about one of our favorite things. I'm going to go ahead and get our screen up on the video. Is it already on there, Amy? Is the presentation available?
It is, and I will get that added for you right now.
Look at what am I talking about? Amy knows what she's doing. I don't.
Yeah, no, I wasn't paying attention. I was too enthralled with both of you right now. So,
no, we're going to give you a forewarning. We have 3 black labs who are all sleeping and being very quiet
for the moment.
Now.
For the moment.
But if at any point you hear barking, it's not us barking at each other. It's the labs out there. You ready to get started, honey buddy?
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming to the virtual workshop that we're having today. Give Yourself Credit. My name is Matt Boyd. I'm a certified financial counselor, and I'm the president of My Credit Repaired. Back when I was going to high school, and I'm sure like many other people, I learned a lot of different things. I learned how to dissect a frog. But one of the things that I did not learn in high school, which would have been very valuable in my adult life, would have been credit and money management. I took several different accounting classes in high school, in college, but nothing really prepared me to take on credit and getting into debt and figuring out all that. So at a young age, I opened up a franchise business, did very well with that, but also racked up a lot of credit card debt along the way and wasn't able to get myself out of it. So eventually I actually filed for bankruptcy and learned a lot from that. And after that, just learned and practiced my way on how to build credit. So I've had a 400 credit score, a 500 credit score. And as you can see on the screen today, I check my score every day. It's an 826. And that takes a lot of time, a lot of discipline in order to get credit scores like that. So looking forward to this evening, talking to you guys about credit, some of the things I see, some pointers that I can give you, and some things that you can help you along the way.
I am Shelly Boyd. I'm married to this guy. Side note, we were high school sweethearts.
Oh, I should have said something about that.
This isn't a Hallmark movie. We didn't live happily ever after high school, but we're living happily ever after now.
We are.
So I am a certified emotional intelligence practitioner, and I also own a small business called Integrare Collaborative, which is coaching, speaking, and empowering, and really around emotional intelligence. I spent over a decade in banking, and so I've done a lot of work around financial literacy, coaching. I've worked from kindergarten through colleges teaching financial literacy. I do have an MBA from Northwood University, and My credit score is currently 750, which isn't nearly as great as my husband's, but I'll tell you what, I'm proud of it.
We're still working on it.
It's
still
a great credit score to have. So I'm super excited to be here with you tonight and supporting Matt. So I just wanted to get us started with a little bit of an overview of the services that My Credit Repaired offers. So we offer credit building, and Matt's going to talk about that a little bit later and why that's important. Credit restoration or credit repairs. So if you've had some problems on your credit report, we can assist you in getting those fixed. Financial counseling. Matt's a certified financial counselor. We really believe that it's important to look holistically at credit. So not just fixing your credit, but also making sure that we're changing some of the habits and the mindsets that got us there in the first place. And then I offer financial EQ coaching, which is financial emotional intelligence. We have the best credit repair software on the market today. And like I said, we really look holistically at how we can provide services to ensure that our clients are going to have ongoing financial success. Just getting that great credit score is only the first step. I'm going to let you click for yourself.
Oh, okay, great. So some of the things that we're going to go over tonight is credit. What is it? What is a credit score? What actually impacts your credit score? Because there's a lot of different things that actually impact that people may not know. And steps you can take to improve your credit score.
And then in terms of financial EQ, that's my sort of side of the wheelhouse. And what is financial EQ? And then how does it impact your financial goals? And I promise you, it really does. Yeah, click the arrow.
Oh, I thought I was just clicking. So let's start out credit history. So where did credit come from? How long has it been around? Credit has been around for over 200 years. It began somewhere between 1800s and 1900s. In the mid 1800s, a company called R.G. Dunn and Company, and then there was another one called Bradstreet Company, which are now they merged back in, I do believe it was 1933. So now it's Dunn and Bradstreet. Obviously, everybody knows that name nowadays, but they were the two big companies that developed kind of the credit bureaus. They actually started out with their own scoring for credit clients back in the day, and it came up with their own, like, I guess what you'd call a credit score, which later got scrutinized because it was leaving out other demographics and it was unfair. So that ended up being kind of squashed. And then later on, Equifax, which actually back then was called Retail Credit Company, and they changed their name to Equifax. They actually hired Fair Isaac Corporation, which is now today FICO, was established in 1956. So an engineer named Bill Fair and Earl Isaac came on board and created the FICO, which is what we know today. In another virtual workshop, we'll actually kind of talk about all these different kind of scores. So you see the Vantage one, you see the FICO one. There's like TransUnion has their own, and we'll get into that and kind of like the pros and cons of which one and kind of what bureaus use today. And also, as far as the history goes, 70% of the households own at least one major credit card. If you look 50 years ago, I think that number was around 16%. And then 34% of the households today have 3 or more credit cards. So credit obviously is out there. It's important. So we really need to understand how to use it, how to benefit us when it comes to credit.
I'm so impressed with your history. You knew a lot there.
I Googled a lot of it.
I'm impressed too, man. I learned a lot about the history of credit.
Well, here's some other things that I thought was very, I guess, shocking out there. And later on in the workshop, we'll kind of go over my situation. 79% of credit reports have errors. That to me was astonishing, and we'll talk again later on about my situation. 61 million Americans have poor credit under a 600 credit score. So obviously, we'll talk about this. It goes from low threes to an 850 on credit. So under 600, lenders tend to shy away from people with those type of credit scores. 33 million Americans have no credit score at all. And so that's another thing that we work on. And I'll give some tips later on, even like with kids. Hey, that's okay. You don't have credit right now, but we can help you build credit and build credit safely so you can manage it. It's controllable and you don't have credit issues down the road. 24 million Americans have no credit file at all, which I thought was weird. Now with Big Brother and everything else around, you have nothing. Like never bought a house, a car, nothing. So one in four every people in the United States have collection accounts. I mean, and I think that's probably going to be growing. We keep hearing about recession. We keep hearing about people being in debt. I just had an article I think I put out there a couple weeks ago about credit card utilization being up just in the past couple years, just because everything's more expensive now, so they're turning to credit to make ends meet. And then on average, 33% of the adults in the United States experience ID theft every year. My cousin actually went through it at an early age. My wife has went through it 3 times.
Yeah.
And so it's a real thing, and you need to protect yourselves on your credit and protect your credit score. So what about Michigan? That was the national averages. What does Michigan look like? That's where we live. So not sure where everybody's coming from tonight, but 79% of credit reports in Michigan have errors on them. Little over $10 million, 10 million people live in Michigan. Average debt on a credit report for the Michiganders are $5,700. 44.3% of the population in Michigan have scores below 700. And then 89% of home buyers are getting a mortgage. So that's telling you, 88%. There's 12% out there that buy houses cash. So obviously the majority, like us, we had to take a mortgage on our house, and we needed to have a good credit score in order to do so. So what impacts your credit score?
I just got to jump in here real quick.
Go ahead.
ID theft 3 times, Shelly?
What? Yes, 3 times.
Wow. I mean, I've had lots of password hacking. My debit card was stolen once, or the numbers. In December, my phone number of 22 years was hijacked, but ID theft 3 times. That's mind blowing.
Well, and the unfortunate thing is the first time it was stolen, it was also my children, because I got hacked through the IRS database theft.
Wow.
Yeah, so we have to file our taxes a special way every year, and we have everything locked down. And because once it gets out there, it's out there forever.
Right, absolutely.
And we're going to show you how to check that later on, Amy, so you can
man.
Sure that everything's on the up and up, and all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Awesome.
Keep looking at this screen. Sorry, we have 3 different screens going on here, and I keep looking at the wrong one. So what impacts your credit score? There's several different things that impact your credit score, and they can also hurt your credit score. So 35% of your credit score is made up of your payment history. So are you making your payments on time? Are you not making your payments on time? Because that's the highest chunk right there, is your payment history. So if you're not making your payments on time and they're delinquent, that's going to bring your credit score down. The next largest one is how much do you owe on a credit card? So I'll give you an example. I have 2 credit cards. Each of them are $5,000 a piece. So my total credit utilization is $10,000. If I have $1,500 on each of those cards, that's $3,000 that I've put towards my credit utilization. That puts me at 30%. credit scores or credit bureaus want your credit utilization to be 30% or less when it comes to you charging things on your credit cards. So if you're looking at, or if you're thinking about your credit limit right now, look to see how much you have on it, and it should be a goal to get that down to less than 30% and watch your score go up. Length of your credit. There's a couple different things I was reading today about canceling credit cards. Are you new to having credit? Do you have hardly any credit? That's a small amount. It's only 15%. But one of the articles today was, well, what about canceling a card that you're not using? And you have to be careful with that, only because it can also drop your credit utilization amount. So if you had 3 cards that were $5,000 a piece, you have $15,000, you need to check how much you have on them to see if that's going to hurt you or help you. It's okay to cancel credit cards, but if you're not using it, as long as you understand what could happen. And then obviously new credit. So new credit, they also look at your inquiries, which would be on hard inquiry. Those stay on your credit report for 2 years. They really only affect your credit for the first 12 months, but they stay on your credit report for 2 years. So I'll give an example. When we were buying this house and I just moved up from Florida to Michigan, we were buying a lot of things. And my wife tried to get a credit card and she couldn't because we had all these inquiries on our credit reports. They didn't know what was going on. It's just
mortgage, car, security system.
Yes. So it was a little crazy there for a minute. So we got everything straightened out and we're good now. And then obviously the types of credit used. So is it installment loans? Is it revolving? Do you have a mortgage? If you have a mortgage versus some credit cards, having just different ways that you're using your credit would be good. So we talked about it a little bit. So what is a good credit score? Credit scores range from 300 all the way up to 850. Now I know some of the bureaus, you'll see this Advantage or the TransUnion thing or whatever. Some of them will go to 950, but for the most part, the standard is 300 to 850. So what does a low credit score cost you? So I did this little mock-up of, and it was funny, I have a Toyota Camry on there for $23,000, but right now, if you look at the new car average of any vehicle, it's $47,000. So how money flies, I guess. So on this example, I have Jane's credit score as 730 and John's credit score is a 599. They're buying the same car. It's the same amount at a 66-month term. And you can see, with Jane, she's getting a 1.99% interest rate and her payment's 68.
Mm-hmm.
And then John's, he's paying $14.99. I just actually talked to one of my friends a couple days ago. He bought a motorcycle and was telling me about the payment. And I'm like, is your interest rate like 18%? He's like, yeah, how'd you know? And I'm like, oh my gosh, please, let's sit down and talk and let me help you with some credit, because 18% on a motorcycle or really anything you're just throwing money away.
This was introduced when I was in banking. So when I was in banking, that's when they started what they call risk-based lending. So the lower your credit score, the better risk you are, or the higher your credit score, rather, the lower risk you are. So you get the best rate available. And as you go up on the continuum of that slide you showed earlier, you pay more because they're calculating that you're a greater risk of not paying it off. So I remember the days when this was first introduced.
Well, poor John's not happy about that because he's spending over $9,000, almost $10,000 for the same car at the same term.
Right.
So that's not going to be fun. Another example, buying a house. I mean, everybody's buying houses. We understand that houses are going up right now. So are interest rates. So the better your credit score is, the better your interest rate's going to be. Kind of the same thing here. Jane and John, credit score 730 and 599, same exact house on a 30-year fixed mortgage. John's actually paying over $200,000 more just because of a credit score during the same 30-year period. And so credit is very, very important when it comes to buying things, when it comes to even, it was weird a few years ago. It seems like you'd go in, you'd move somewhere, and you'd get your electric turned on or your cable or whatever, and they're running your credit score. I'm like, why are you running my credit score?
Right.
And so, like, it seems like anything you do nowadays, especially when it comes to a house, insurance,
Cell phones.
My mom's got a over 800 credit score. And her funny story was she couldn't get a cell phone from Verizon because she couldn't log in to unfreeze her account, so they couldn't check her credit. And we thought it was pretty funny.
It makes a big difference, though, especially on long-term mortgages like that.
Absolutely. All right, Amy. So LexisNexis, have you ever heard of it?
Only through one conversation with you, Matt. So I am eager to learn more.
Okay, so LexisNexis is probably the largest data farm in the world. And what they do is they collect data on, you name it, court records, medical documents, credit bureau stuff. They also they do a good thing too. They help find like missing children and stuff through different, data points and stuff like that. But they actually sell your data to companies like Equifax and Experian and TransUnion. You ever look on a credit report and you go, well, how did that get on there? Because the courts do not report to credit bureaus. So the credit bureaus are getting this from somewhere. So a lot that's on your credit report, and I want to make sure everybody understands, it's your responsibility to make sure your credit report is correct. So they're not going to go, oh, well, that's a misspelling. We'll just fix that ourselves. No, you actually have to call them and fix that. So I did a LexisNexis report, and just to see what was on my LexisNexis that would be possibly reporting to all of the credit bureaus. So as you can see, my report was 102 pages long, and they can range from what was yours?
Mine was really short.
Yeah, it was
like 40.
But it can go up to over 260 pages. And there was over 60 errors on my LexisNexis report. Now, when I say errors, the errors are either my name is spelled wrong, my phone number is not a phone number I've ever had in my life. There was houses that some Matt Boyd purchased, not this Matt Boyd, but a different Matt Boyd purchased somewhere, which I'm sure some Matt Boyd did, just wasn't this one. And so when I say there was over 60 errors, there was actually like 68 errors. It's that error could be on multiple different records. So there could really only be 30 errors, but it's on multiple different things on the report that actually needs to be corrected. So there's a link down there. I don't know, Amy, if you can actually drop that in something for them later on or whatever. It's really easy to do. I did the online one instead of calling. There's the 1-800 number that you can call as well. I just went online, did that. They ask you several different questions just to verify it's you. And then in about 2 weeks, you'll get a letter with a certain PIN number and a certain link. And then you'll go to that site and it'll pop up your LexisNexis report. And you might be surprised on what you find on it. I immediately called them. I highlighted everything that was wrong. I immediately called them. The lady was very helpful on the phone, very nice, very professional. She's like, okay, what do you want to dispute? I gave her all my 60 ones. And she said, well, you'll get an update here momentarily. So it took about, 3 to 4 weeks. I just got the letter about a week or so ago. Same thing. You got a pin with your link. And you go in and it just shows everything that was deleted off my report. So now if anything goes from my LexisNexis or if they sell anything to the credit bureaus, it's at least correct. I mean, I went right to the credit bureau on some things. They just had my name spelled wrong. Like my name's not M-A-T, it's M-A-T-T. My last name's not Boy, it's Boyd. And so just by doing that with a couple of them, my credit score shot up 83 points just by correcting personal information on your credit report. And you'll be
mind blown just knowing that.
I showed her, I was like,
went
look.
from Matt with one T to Matt Boyd, the correct one.
Yeah, because if you think about it, all that stuff in your credit report is attached to something.
Right.
And so that could be bad credit. It could be whatever. Who knows what it is? Just by correcting that, and they have to correct it, you are eligible to have a accurate credit report. I mean, so if you call them and say, hey, and what I did was I called them, I actually wrote them a letter because that's obviously what I do, right? Give them a copy of my driver's license. And I also send in some other information just to verify myself, send them a nice little letter, blah, blah, blah. Came back 83 points up, and it happened pretty darn quick. So I stay on my credit score almost every day just to look to make sure things are going on.
That's the reason my credit repair exists.
Yes.
About LexisNexis, Matt, we do have a question.
Sure.
Is there a cost to obtain your report?
Great question. No, it's free. It's free. Okay. Call the 1-800 number. I just did the online because it was just super easy.
And I shared out the online.
Yeah, and you can just go to like LexisNexis request or whatever. It'll pop right up on Google. You just go in there. It's free and very helpful.
So another question is, Matt, why is this the first time we've ever heard of LexisNexis?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly.
Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. We know about them, but why don't we know about LexisNexis?
Very good question. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
Well, because financial institutions aren't using this or credit reporting agencies aren't using this to develop, like a score is not coming from this. This information is going to the score.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, again, so like I said before, credit bureaus do not get your U.S. If you file bankruptcy or whatever, that kind of stuff, that's public knowledge in a court system. But the credit companies just don't get that. They have to request that somewhere. And most of that stuff comes from Lexis.
Well, that's where my mind was blown is, I guess I just thought because it was financial related, but that makes sense. But now I'm wondering, what else in backgrounds? What if somebody's criminal conviction for something is on your LexisNexis report? Is that somehow, connected because of what Shelley was saying, credit risk, So if there's convictions in the background.
I wouldn't think that would be on your credit report, but I mean.
I wouldn't think, but I don't know. Yeah. I don't trust the whole system with all of that when our insurance rates are based on when I've never had
right.
Here nor there, but
yep.
Mind blown. Thanks for answering those, Matt.
Yeah, it shocked me too. There's actually another one out there. We'll discuss that in another workshop, but there's actually two big ones. This is probably the biggest, but there's another one with a bunch of personal records and a bunch of other stuff that would mind blow you.
Wow.
Yep. So steps to improve your credit. What can we do to improve our credit fairly quickly, or just because sometimes it depends on what your credit looks like, and then it might be multiple steps in order for us to be able to help repair it, or you have no credit, so you just need to improve your no credit situation. So number one, I would actually review your credit report for accuracy. Obviously, just based off what we've just told you, looking at your credit report, making sure it's correct, go into the LexisNexis, making sure that is correct. Those are really big, and making sure that your name is spelled correctly. The addresses on your credit report are addresses that you've actually lived at. Paying your bills on time. I mean, the biggest part of credit is making sure your payment history has been a positive one for probably 24 months is what they usually look at. Credit utilization, 30% or less. I like it around the 20-ish. I just like to be a little bit lower than the 30 if I can. Limit your inquiries. I just had a buddy. It actually changed his cell phone number and everything. He went to one of the websites, and I did this too back in the day too, so I can't really laugh at him. But you are comparing what insurances that you want with, I guess, this company that's going to go out and do whatever for you. Well, you usually put your social security number in. So I had multiple hits on a couple different days of people checking my credit. Had I known that was going to happen, I would have never done it, because you've got all these inquiries going on your credit report, and that does not look good. Non-traditional reporting options. Like I said, if you have no credit whatsoever right now, there are easy things that we can do. If you go to our website, we have partners that we team up with. If you are currently renting, we deal with the rent reporters. So it's a program that will actually report your rent to all 3 bureaus. Now, there is a fee to that, and it will explain that on our website. But it reports to all 3 credit bureaus, and that starts helping you build credit. There's also a secured credit card option on our website as well. You put down however much you want your credit limit to be, and then that is your credit limit. And then you start, what I would recommend is you start out with $500. I would just put my groceries on it and then pay it off when I got home. So that's a really quick, easy way to do that. Enrolling credit monitoring services, and we also have that as well. It's called Credit Hero Score. I think that's on our website as well. Usually when we work with people, we have that mandatory thing for them is to sign up for Credit Hero Score, just so we can see what we've changed, what we haven't changed, what we still need to work on. Hey, if you've actually added a credit card to your credit report and we didn't know about it. So we like to manage it through the credit monitoring service, just to make sure we're doing what we need to do to get people's credit fixed correctly. And then consider debt consolidation. I mean, whatever highest interest rate credit card you have, pay that one off first, and then just go down the line if you can. And then consider, and I do this, I think you do it now too, is if you're not going to use credit, not your credit cards, but if you're not going to go out and look for a car loan or a new home or something big like that, consider freezing your credit just so it's more protected. You can still use your credit cards, but at that way, no one can actually check your credit. So it just helps to kind of keep the people that shouldn't be looking at your credit not looking at your credit.
Well, and it prevents identity theft.
Well, yes.
Because they can't pull your credit to get any loans.
And I'm going to jump in there real quick. I second that. Between when my phone number was hijacked, I looked to see, is my freeze still on? And it wasn't there. And so for those who are viewing this, when you put a credit freeze on, as Matt said, you can use your credit. You can even apply for credit, but they're going to call you to make sure it's you that is applying for that. Right. And then we do have a viewer wondering, Matt, about the use non-traditional reporting options. And so with individuals who are renting their housing at this time, they're curious about a little bit more. They can get that reported.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. There you go, viewers.
Yep. It's right on our website, or on his website. So if you look under partners and go to rent reporters, you'll get all the information. There's a link to get you there. So it's really great if you're trying to build credit.
That's awesome. Matt's website is in the comments as well for everybody watching.
Anybody who have kids, I suggest, I did this a long time ago, and my kids turned 18 and they both came out with 750 credit scores. I mean, at 18 years old or 16 or whatever. So what I did, they call it piggybacking now, and it's not as good, I guess, as good as it used to be, because an authorized signer isn't the same as what it was back in the day. But I put all my kids as authorized users on my credit cards when they were super young.
Yeah, I think they start at 13.
I
some of
probably
them.
had them on earlier than that, but so when they were ready to go to college, people were wondering how in the heck they already had a 750 credit score, and that's why. And so that can help your kids. I mean, these kids nowadays, they're young, and credit is king, and they're going to start out with hardly any credit at all. So if that's something, if you have good credit, that's one way to boost your kids' credit scores. We use American Express. I mean, it's just one of the things that we like. It just works for us. But at 13, we can get our kids a credit card.
Small limit.
Yeah, you can actually control the limit.
Small limit.
So I think the lowest is like $100 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we did that for years. We actually still do it with the kids that are still going to high school. But that's just another way for them to build credit on their own. Still under us, we're responsible for the payment, but at least they start getting their, score kind of going. So for any of you that have kids, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, and then sign your kids up for credit monitoring too, and consider freezing their credit, because my kids had their information stolen through the IRS database. That's something that's really important to me, because the last thing you would want is for your child to, turn 18 to get their first loan and find out that somebody's been putting all these things in their name for all of these years. So I would recommend that.
Any other questions, Amy?
Now we're moving on to my part of this, my favorite part. So really it's about making thoughtful financial decisions. So as I said, my background is in banking. I spent over a decade in banking, but emotional intelligence is what I really love and what makes my heart sing. Daniel Goleman, who's called the father of emotional intelligence, even though he really isn't. It was started before he really made it popular. Just defines it as how we handle ourselves in our relationship. And that's what we're talking about today. How do we affect change through understanding who we are emotionally? When I was in banking, they always said money rules the world. And I always said, no, feelings rule the world. We are feeling creatures who happen to think as well. And emotion flows around our brain so much more than logic. And it highly impacts the way we utilize our money. And that's when you get to the idea of financial emotional intelligence. So I just want to show you this quote because I love it. This is by a professor of economics at the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago. And so he was talking about, he said, standardized economic theory is based on an idealized conception of behavior, bestowing on humans the mind of the computer and the willpower of a saint. If this were true, people would rationally calculate how much money they need to retire, save, and invest, then reduce their consumption accordingly, invest optimally, and never splurge or speculate. Well, based on the figures that my husband went over earlier today, you can tell that most of us are not super rational. There may be very rational economists out there, but most people are not super rational when it comes to their feelings and their relationship with money. So let's talk about what financial EQ is. And, it's really, if you think about it, it's the need to live within your means, which is simply spending less than you make. A lot of people think financial EQ has to do with being financially responsible, but responsible is one of those words that's like kind of ambiguous, right? Like what's responsible to one person, is that responsible to another person? So my husband will attest to you. And if you go to my website or my LinkedIn, you'll see that I have tons of degrees and certifications, and I could spend my lifetime doing personal and professional development. It absolutely makes my heart sing. So let's say that makes my heart sing, and I decide, hey, I want to go spend $50,000 and get certified to teach yoga. I happen to love yoga, but I'm not really going to teach yoga when I'm done. This is just something that I want to do for myself. So when you think about that, would that be a financially responsible decision for us average people, middle class Americans? Probably not. Now, maybe if I was Britney Spears or Megan Thee Stallion or, Bill Gates or something, that would make sense. But that's not really going to make sense. That's not financially responsible for the place that we are in our lives. So while it's good for personal development, which again, I think is very important, if you're not going to be able to recoup that money that you spend, then it may not be financially responsible to spend it in that way. I remember when I decided to go to grad school, and my husband was very supportive of me, and I talked to my friends. They were very supportive of me. I went to the school counselor and I was ready to sign up, and I sat down and she looked at me and said, "This program costs X amount of dollars. How many years is it going to take you to make that up in your increased salary?" And I really took that to heart, and I was able to make it happen. But when you think about financial EQ, it's really thinking about what's driving it. Is it driving something that you want to do just because it's something you want to do? Or is it something that is, going to help you fulfill something else in your life? So emotional intelligence as it relates to finances is understanding how we feel about money and why we feel that way. Because you want to zero in what money means to you emotionally, so we can welcome money in our lives and enjoy it, right? Like, we all want to have things and enjoy our lives, but being able to do it within your means is going to be the most practical way to make it through however many years you are grateful enough to have here on this lovely earth. So I just want you to think for a second about your last financial transaction. And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be big, it could be small. But ask yourself, what were you feeling at the time? What were you feeling? Were you upset? Were you happy? Were you running late? Were you celebrating? Were you ticked off because your spouse bought something for themselves that you didn't know about? Did you feel like you had a really rough day and you deserved it? When it comes to financial emotional intelligence, it's the same as traditional emotional intelligence. The change happens in the micro moments. So it's first about getting an understanding before you pull out your credit card or before you decide to make that purchase. Why? What is this going to make me feel? Why am I feeling driven to do this? Because we're on this constant feedback loop in our lives. I mean, think about the stories that we tell ourselves over and over and over all day. And so if we tell ourselves enough story, I deserve to have this latte. I deserve to do that. I knew I said I would do this, but this makes me feel better. We're going to be able to create an experience that allows us to believe that about money and justify whatever it is we want in the moment. So this is the emotional intelligence wheel that I use in the way that I practice coaching and speaking. And it may be a little bit different than what you've seen before if you're familiar with emotional intelligence. But essentially, it's self-perception, self-expression, your interpersonal skills, decision-making, and then stress management. And it really starts at that self-perception and kind of goes around as a wheel, right? So when you talk about money, we usually focus on the very technical aspects of money. But economic decisions just aren't simple and they're not rational. They're very emotional and they're biological as well. So when you're in touch with your financial EQ or with your EQ, as it relates to decision making and setting priorities, it allows you to understand what's driving that financial decision making. So there's many of us, like Matt and I, who make decisions in tandem with each other. We're partners, we're spouses, we share the same money. And so not only do I need to have that self-awareness of what drives my financial EQ, I need to be able to understand what drives his financial EQ. We need to have the ability to have that interpersonal communication and empathy for all parts for this partnership to work. I'm not a marriage therapist or social worker, but I can tell you that most marriages end because of money situations. And having that EQ as part of it is going to help you move through that and build the skills you need as a couple a little bit better. And it's also going to help you to process and understand your emotions. So when you're pulling out your card for your Starbucks or for whatever it is, when you're in that moment, asking yourself that question and really understanding why you're making that decision, that's where the change is going to happen. Again, it's in the micro moments. So when I talk to people about, emotional intelligence, they always bring up the biggest thing that's ever happened in their whole life, the biggest fight or the biggest situation. We are never our best when things are their worst. And so if you are going through something stressful, whether it's at work, whether it's at, job, whether it's money situations, that's not the best time for you to make the best decisions. We tend to be at our worst at the worst times. That's why financial emotional intelligence, like traditional emotional intelligence, is a practice. It's a daily practice of trying to understand how our emotions are driving what we do. I actually tell my clients to print off what's called a feelings wheel, and it's a PDF. It's available online, completely free. And it has kind of your core feelings in the middle. And Amy has hers. Thank you. And then all your other feelings around it. And the reason is because we give emotions such a bad rap not in the United States, in the world. So think about it. We tell people, turn that frown upside down. Don't cry. Well, at least this didn't happen. And we do all of these things to tell people to tamp down their emotions. And then we don't understand why we're reacting in certain ways, whether it's in money or it's in relationships. So get your feelings wheel and think about that when you're going out to make a purchase. And in those micro moments, you're going to start being able to recognize and begin making those bigger changes. And it's also important to understand that family conditioning, we grew up very differently. I grew up in a very different way. I had one very affluent, my biological father and stepmother were very affluent. And then my stepdad and my mom, who I lived with, we really lived paycheck to paycheck. And so those types of things are sort of reinforce and condition us and changes the way that we look at money issues. So for me, there's part of me that I want to have a little bit of money because it makes me nervous to live paycheck to paycheck. But then there's another part of me that's like, it's okay. I always know how to make more money. Money is not the end all be all, right? And so, but it's understanding that and getting to your comfort level for you.
Shelly, before we move on,
yeah,
I just want to say a mind-blowing nugget that I'm taking, and I don't know why I've not applied this to my EQ, to understanding my significant other's financial EQ and what drives them. So when I'm making those decisions, so that is something that is going to help me for the rest of whatever I'm given to be on this earth. I don't know why that was a huge aha, but I'm sure if it was for me, maybe for some of our viewers. And I just want to let everybody know Shelly was talking about the feelings wheel, I'm huge on that. I have one posted right in front of me. The reason I was able to grab it so quickly is because I use it with my clients as well. And so I'm going to just drop my email address in the comments. If you would like it, just email it to me and I'll get it right over to you.
Thank you, Amy. That made my heart so happy to hear that I said something.
Yes, it's hands down. It was to understand Matt, so how he's going to feel when I make this purchase was a situation in my life is I love to give gifts.
Right.
And so I have no qualms about going to get gifts, where another person in my life is yeah, but I thought you wanted your savings to be here.
Yes.
And I'm like, yeah, but this is a really important moment in this person's life, and we need to celebrate this promotion or the new job or the birthday or just crap. They're having a really bad day. I want to make them feel better. Like,
Yep.
had I put that perspective until it caused the fight, that's awesome. Thank you, Shelly.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's so funny. My stepmom has this saying that I always think about, and as it comes to money, and I'm a big gift giver too. I love giving people gifts. Like it makes me so happy. But on the flip side of that, when it comes to money, what I always think about, it's like whether it's a new shiny new toy, whether it's the refrigerator, whether it's whatever, it's what you're looking for isn't in there, right? Like the external things don't make us happy. And that's what I always think about when it comes to me personally, my relationship with money. Like what I'm looking for isn't in there. Like a bigger house isn't going to make me happy. A shinier car isn't going to make me happy. And I think when you can sort of get to that place with money, it's a little bit helpful, because money is a mirror. Like money reflects our own personal value. Money has no value. Actually, the word salary is just left over from when we used to trade salt, because there wasn't such a thing as money. Like we are the ones that assign value to money. If you have more money, some people feel like it makes you important and, expansive and, like I'm so great. And if you have less money, some people feel like, oh, geez, there's something wrong with me and I'm less than, or I don't feel like I'm enough. It's our emotional attachment to money that dictates our relationship with it and our beliefs around it. And so, as I said before, we're conditioned to have tendencies around money, because of the way that we were brought up, maybe with scarcity, maybe with a lot. But we are the ones that are attaching our emotional and rational value to it, which means we're the ones that can really redefine what our beliefs are. And that's part of what emotional intelligence is about. It's about that self-awareness. And then it's about questioning why you're telling yourself that story, or questioning the reality of that story. And again, it goes with money. And so I love this picture, and you've all probably seen it before. It's like some people see a young lady, some people see an old woman. And nobody's wrong. You see the world with through your own personal lens, and you can find information that supports that view. I see the young lady here. She's the first one I see. I don't know who Matt sees. Maybe he sees the old woman, and we could fight to the death about which one of us was right, when it can be yes and. So the point with this is you may be intellectually committed to a financial goal or a course of action, but until you rewire the way you're thinking automatically by understanding your financial EQ, it's going to be hard to make lasting changes. And so when I talk about increasing your financial EQ, self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence. So pay attention to your feelings. I already talked about the feelings wheel. I read and study a lot on positive psychology and happiness. And it's really interesting the way that we're hardwired. And so there's a percentage of us that we're just hardwired a certain way to be happy or unhappy or, what have you. And then there's a percentage of us that it's based on wherever we are in terms of our environment. But what we think is going to increase our happiness really doesn't. You may have like a short-term raise in your satisfaction or your happiness after you make a purchase, but then we go right back down to our set point. There's never enough. But what happens if we keep trying to feed ourselves with purchases or what have you, that regret is going to build and build, and then we're going to find ourselves in a difficult credit situation. Again, avoid making decisions under stress. This could be anything, but particularly financial stress. You don't want to make big decisions, especially. Write down your financial goals and your why behind it. So it's one thing to have a goal. It's another thing to understand your why. I sat through a presentation on financial emotional intelligence, and like we were just talking about different goals, and one coach was saying, I have a client that never wants to balance his checkbook. That's all he wants. He never wants to balance his checkbook. So he always wants to have enough money in his checkbook to cover whatever he has. That's a real thing. Like, that's a real why. If that's your why, then understand that, and that's okay. Take a real look at where you are today. And this can be tough. I mean, we have months where we're going out and we're vacationing and we're all of that. And then you look and you go, how did that happen? Well, not looking at it doesn't change the fact that we've got some cleanup to do on the spending. So be realistic with where you are today and then make those adjustments. It's like anything, it's a practice. You're not going to be perfect, but making it a habit, you're going to eventually slowly get to that place where you want to be. Find low and no cost ways to celebrate. I love celebrating as much as everybody.
Oh God, yes.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be a night out with friends. We'll go out with friends for dinner and it's like, oh my gosh, let's have a potluck the next time because we can have the same amount of fun for a third of the cost.
Especially now when restaurants are so expensive.
Right. Or like take your kids to the park, go to your local zoo, go walk, go hike. There are ways to do fun things that don't have to involve spending money. If you have a partner, make sure to communicate with them so that you're on the same page, particularly with the big things. And then contact us for a complimentary evaluation. And we say values because we want to make sure our values match. We want to make sure that we're the right fit for you and that, we're on the same page in terms of the holistic way that we try to work through credit restoration, all financial things. So
before you move on, we do have a question. Looks like we got a good special coming up here, but going into gender stereotypes, going for a walk, doing parks, different things like that. What are some masculine things that we can do to celebrate at low to no cost? And maybe Matt, you can tell us what you do.
He took up pickleball this summer and I never saw him.
Well, it depends.
I want to learn pickleball.
So
you're gonna have to visit me out at Home Flats Felch sometime and teach me pickleball.
We can do it. We can actually have our own little tournament or whatever you'd like. But me coming from Florida where you couldn't sit outside pretty much anytime, we have a nice patio out here over here in Michigan now. And so a lot of times we just have people over here. Everybody will bring, something. That's just an easier way to do it.
Cycling. You love cycling.
I like cycling. That's a way to do it. You can, get a group of people to go do that.
Putt golf.
But you're talking about celebrating going out with friends and stuff, right?
Well, it just, yourself enjoying or with friends.
For me, I just, I get the guys in the neighborhood and we have actually a pickleball chat on our text message and, Mondays are usually pickleball night. Sometimes we just have guy night just to go out and just sit in someone's garage and, hey, what's going on? How you doing? What's going on with the kids, whatever, have a drink, whatever it is. But yeah, you don't have to always go out. I'd prefer not to go out to a restaurant. And if it's going to be a restaurant, I prefer it to be locally owned. So I'm supporting local people. Yep. And I'm not a big chain person. So if it's just a unique place that a mom and pop owns it, more the better for me. So
awesome. So I am going to ask this. I know some stuff about Matt and Shelly here. So one of the things that Shelly does and has become a master at is canning. But there's I don't think it's a spoken rule that Matt doesn't allow. So Shelly does this with friends. Yeah. And there's this rule that Shelly can't share the goods with us because then Matt has to go back to the store and have the store-bought stuff, which I totally get, Matt.
No, that's somewhat correct. I'll tell you what happened was, so last year she started making salsa and I just kind of like, yeah, whatever, until I tried it. And when I tried it, I realized this is like amazing salsa. So I was going through like a jar a day, which she wasn't expecting. And so I started getting my salsa rationed to me. And I was like, well, okay, well, that's not fun. And then she would brag about this corn being so great. And I'm like, well, stop telling people because I would like to have some at home when I'm at home.
I'm a gift giver.
So this
That's what
year,
I call gift giving. And so I'm like, Matt, do you ever give that yourself? You know,
well,
gift
so
giver.
this year she got me a 1937 tiller from I don't know where. This thing was like I might as well have taken the dogs out and try to get them to plow or to till the yard. It would have been a lot easier. So I just felt like this year, since I did all the work to make her, real garden, because everything else was like in a raised garden or something,
Mm-hmm.
I should get the dibs on this. So nothing's going, because like even today, like I opened up a can and I get looks and I'm like, all right.
Shelly, you got to stop that. I can tell you this man worked hard. I did see
Yes.
the sequence of that. And I just find that because Shelly being a gift giver, and she has created a community of coming around doing that process.
Yeah.
And I love reading the stories about Matt saying, no, not happening. I'm going to need that stuff.
Yeah. So there are fun things like that, like gardening, and I could go on and on. But we did want to offer a 10% discount today for anyone who is on this call. The evaluation is complimentary. If you want to become a client of us, all you need to do when you're putting in your info is put home flats in the how can we help you improve your credit. And I know we're a little bit over, Amy, so I did want to open it up for whatever questions that there may be left. And I'll put our info on there in case anyone wants to contact us.
I think we're looking at the wrong camera.
I know. I can't hear you. I can't hear you though, Amy. You went away from me.
Here we go, the virtual world. So
I know.
Thank you. I learned so much personally.
Thank you.
For viewers, I really hope that this was impactful. People reached out to me when we made the announcement, like, Amy, you're a career life coach, strategist. How does it directly impact? So I, coming from somebody who works with people who are in seasons of transition, the information is just like, oh, wow. And so I want to thank you personally and for my clients who are going to learn from this knowledge in the future. Right now, we don't have any other questions coming in, but I'm blown away by the offer you just made. And so if we can go back to that screen, Shelly, really quick, just so we do have Matt's website already in the comments, but I want to copy the code down correctly real quick.
I didn't know how to do the line above the O, so.
Oh, you know what? I don't either. And I've asked multiple times.
That's good.
So I didn't do it.
All right. I was able to get the code, getting it in the comments. And I am so immensely grateful to both of you. And you're doing great things in the world. And just want to say thank you for investing in us today.
Thank you, Amy.
Shelly, because even though we practice it.
Integrare.
Yes. Thank you for saying it.
It's the Latin root of the word integrate, which means to make whole.
Yes. Thank you. So you can access Shelly's website that she just pronounced, that I am personally, I'm going to learn this in the month of September. I'm going to know how to pronounce it. or My Credit Repaired, Home Flats Properties, E3 Coaching Studios. And we just want to thank everybody for being here. Have a
Thank you.